Welcome to the Energy and Decarbonisation Update for CMF members. It's April 2025 and we've got some exciting developments to share with you today. I'm Simon Forrester, CMF's Chief Executive, and joining me today is our retained consultant Matthew Rhodes from Camirus. Matthew's been supporting us on all things net zero since we began this journey in 2021.
Hi Simon, that's right. Yes, since 2021, the CMF's been convening a members panel 3 times a year to keep an eye on things like energy and decarbonisation policy. Plus, once a year, we have an open event for members to share best practice as well.
Yes, the next open forum's fast approaching. It's on Thursday, the 12th of June in Wolverhampton. These events are crucial for our members because, as we know, UK industrial energy prices are currently the highest in the industrialised world. Energy is a significant cost for foundries, and the UK government wants our industry to decarbonise while remaining competitive. We're trying to help members navigate this and share practical advice on what's worked for them.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about. Decarbonisation policies can be both a massive risk and an opportunity for members. If the government gets them wrong, it could make the situation even worse than what you've described, Simon. But if they get it right, it can really boost the competitiveness of UK foundries and open up significant funding for new investments as well. Industries like the steel industry and the petrochemicals industry have been very adept, in my view, at exploiting subsidies that the government's put forward for the last 10 years, really, around how you transition from an oil and gas world into offshore wind turbines, etc., and technologies that suit them. And now it's our turn to try and get hold of some of that. And speaking of funding, the government's been active in providing support to some degree. For example, the Industrial Energy Transformation Fund's now been around for a while, and that's been a big help to people who know about it.
So how big is this IETF?
Well, the most recent round, which I think was the 3rd round, and that each round's been split into 2 or 3 bits as well, it was worth 185 million. And it gave grants of up to 14 million per site available. So you can see they started off designing this for your average steelworks, really, rather than your average foundry. The CMF Net Zero Forum plays a crucial role in helping members understand how to access that kind of scheme, because you do need to think about it and enter into it with your eyes open. And we also lobby to make these sort of schemes more accessible for foundries.
Yes, so starting from now, the panel is going to issue news updates to members after each meeting to make sure you've got the latest information. Please remember, all our members are welcome to attend these panel meetings to discuss policy. They usually take place in the Midlands or South Yorkshire area, but the June event in Wolverhampton is all about best practice.
Yeah, and if you're interested in joining a meeting, just contact the CMF office and we'd love to have you there.
Absolutely. Now, Matthew, talk about funding. The government's currently undertaking a comprehensive spending review. So, as far as I'm aware, all schemes are on hold. When do you think things are going to get moving again?
I think we should get more clarity in the next few months. I think the government do understand the need to inject a bit of certainty into this space, because there's been a lot of uncertainty for a number of years now. Once the spending review is complete, and I believe I heard a date of June the 11th actually last week, it seems likely there'll continue to be these kind of grant schemes for manufacturers who are investing in more energy efficient equipment, like furnaces, for example, and manufacturing equipment. So that's an important point, because this isn't just about solar panels and insulation for your buildings. This is about manufacturing equipment, furnaces, things to make your foundry work more efficiently. The grants will typically cover up to 50% of the cost from all these schemes, provided you can show that improvement in the energy efficiency. And sometimes there are rather esoteric ways they ask you to do that, but that's the kind of thing the CMF exists to help you with.
Absolutely. And what about larger grants?
So the larger grants for the IETF scheme, for example, ranging from 75,000 to 14 million. They've been very competitive and very challenging to access. So bureaucratically, they're challenging, and they have rules which you've got to meet in order to be accessible, to be qualify for the funding. That's the word I'm looking for. So it's definitely worth taking advice before going for those. The bigger funding as well, the kind of capital funding up to 14 million, there's usually feasibility funding as well at lower levels, so that you can prove your case, and effectively it pays you to write the bid for the large amount of money.
Okay, that's great. It sounds like people should be speaking to experts. So do speak to the team at LG Energy Group. They've been CMF's partners on all things energy and sustainable business related for, well, more than 12 years now, and they can advise on accessing grants. Matthew, I'm guessing most foundries will want the smaller end of that line. They won't be after 14 million. And I know a couple that have accessed match funding up to about 100,000. Is that available?
Yes. So I'm not sure if we said it earlier, but the IETF scheme is currently on hold while the spending review happens. So you can't actually go for that funding yet, but hopefully you'll be able to do that again next year. And there are a couple of foundries, I should say, who've accessed that as well. The smaller grants, though, are really available for everybody. At the moment, the government are doing a pilot in the wider West Midlands. So that's not just the combined authority area with the mayor, but also Staffordshire, Shropshire, Worcestershire, and all the Warwickshire areas which surround the kind of Birmingham conurbation. And they're running that scheme forward into 25-26 as a pilot, pending the outcome of the spending review. And it looks as if it will be rolled out nationally from this time next year, basically next April. All you have to do to access the grant of 100,000 for your manufacturing equipment is to have an audit from an approved and qualified industrial energy consultant. And it's important when you have those kind of audits to make sure that the consultant actually recommends whatever capital project it is that you have in mind that you'd like to get the funding for. I've had one or two companies come to me and say, we've got this fantastic energy saving project. The consultant didn't spot it, so we're unable to apply for the capital grant. Well, that actually, they will spot it if you tell them to spot it, actually, usually. So that's just a tip.
That's a very useful tip, yes. So moving on to sort of policy and regulation, what's happening with energy pricing?
Energy pricing, I think, yeah.
Well, the government's essentially said that UK industrial energy prices and connection delays are causing problems, and it's stopping them progressing their sort of industrial strategy and growth agenda.
Yeah.
But what sort of initiatives are out there? There's something about REMA, I seem to remember.
Yeah, so there's a range of initiatives out there, Simon. So there are energy industry sort of driven ones like REMA, which is the Reform of Electricity Market Arrangements, a very esoteric sort of title, and that's a very techie thing, but it might result in things like zonal pricing, so that you get different prices for electricity depending on how close you are to the generation, a lot of which is now in Scotland and consists of wind turbines, for example, and hydropower. So the further north you are, the more likely you are to get lower energy prices. But this isn't a done deal yet. This is being considered, and the energy sector moves in a very slow pace. And the outcome of that would also be higher prices in the south, which is why it's quite controversial. They're also looking, or they have looked at things like separating electricity prices from gas prices, which is one reason why our electricity prices are so high in the UK, because the electricity price is set at the price of the most expensive unit that's used every half an hour to dispatch electricity generation. But they rejected calls to do that, which is a disappointment, actually. That's one of the reasons our prices are so high.
So we were talking about the challenges around industrial energy prices, and yeah. I mentioned about connection delays. What about connections to the grid? Lots of our members have expressed frustration to me about this. Any good news for them?
Yes, that's another area that the electricity sector in particular recognises is a problem, so that's good news, and they are addressing it, which is also good news. They move extremely slowly, which isn't great news, but the intent is to make it faster to get to a connection for your new, if you want more demand because you've got additional orders, or if you want to install solar panels or wind turbines on your site. We've had cases of as long as 8 to 10 years to get a connection, which is ridiculous. One of the reasons for that is there's a long queue of people waiting for connections. A lot of those people in the queue are speculators who are speculating about maybe there'll be schemes to pay people for generating renewable power, whatever, locally. And they don't actually use their application. They just block up the queue because the network companies are required to do a first in, first out. They're required to process the queue in order. So we're looking at connections reform. The first step towards that is streamlining the queue, so getting rid of anyone in the queue who hasn't got evidence that they're actually going to build a project or they need more demand. And then there are some noises about giving regional mayors, for example, the power to prioritise, or local areas the power to prioritise more strategic connections. But that's a big step to take. So that's a slightly more provocative development. However, the good news is some reform is on its way. There's a recognition that something needs to be done in this space. It's just taking rather a long time to put it all together.
So it sounds like sort of planting a tree. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. It's the same with getting a new electricity connection.
Yes.
Okay. Getting back to the topics that we discussed, one was CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. I know that's a very important topic. We responded to UK consultations on this to try and minimise differences from the EU scheme, because that will just be a load of red tape that our members don't need. UK is not going to implement any UK version until at least 2027, so that's one to watch, and obviously we'll keep members abreast of that once we know more. But what's the latest position on things, Matthew?
Well, I think probably the first thing to say is that both the EU and the UK government have reaffirmed their commitment to CBAM despite global changes and everything else. So this is coming down the road. It's been a challenging area because the EU have stated up front that they're going to learn as they go along, and they're going to take 10 years and implement it in a progressive way. So ultimately, they're planning for it to replace the emissions trading scheme altogether and to include everybody. So there's quite a big strategic intent with this. But there are a lot of issues around things like classification. So, for example, is you're casting a finished product or not a finished product? Where do the tariffs, where are they imposed? And it makes it a minefield. We've already had members finding that they can, just by changing the commodity codes of the casting, you're either exempt or not exempt. So it will take everyone some time to get their hands around this, but there are at least the long kind of implementation time to as long as you show you're trying to get it right, I think you will find the various authorities will be sympathetic, and there are a few things that are clear. The commitment to doing it is the first one, as I've already mentioned. The other thing that's, I think, important for members is there are minimum thresholds in both the EU and the UK. So if you're importing or exporting into the EU, if you're in the EU and importing, or if you're in the UK and exporting into the EU, and it's less than 50 tons of material a year, you're exempt. So there's a lower threshold. And in the UK, it's £50,000 of value over 12 months as a rolling period. So if you fall below that, you don't need to worry, you're not liable. That's the current position. I guess you just need to watch in case the threshold falls in the future. The classification issues, so commodity codes, etc., the policymakers are trying to focus on raw materials. So they are explicitly saying they're most interested in raw materials, and the nearer you get to the actual car or the aeroplane or whatever, the less likely it is that you'll be in scope. But that's easy to say that, it's a bit harder to pin it down. And the other important thing I think it's worth saying around CBAM is the EU in particular do see this way of defending their industry. They see metals as particularly important and a sector they want to defend. The foundry associations across Europe, as far as we're aware and having talked to them, is that they're very supportive of that as well. So they're trying to broaden the classifications and the specifications of things that are included, and they're really doubling down now. We've got a new administration in the US, so there's a risk this becomes part of trade disputes and all the rest of it, or a negotiating element in those. So it's not necessarily going to get any easier, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's hope we can turn it into some good news for one of our future conversations. Okay, so once again, it sounds like a minefield, and this is again where CMF can help its members. We've worked with another third-party provider, CBamboo, who we may be able to help here. So we'll put some details on this video, so you can contact CBamboo, have a chat with them, and see if they can assist you through the forest of CBAM. Okay, in other developments, we've supported the launch of Electrify Industry, which is a new lobby group set up to ensure UK manufacturers can access and electrify and get equivalent support to some of those organisations that Matthew mentioned around petrochemicals, steel, glass sectors, who've been very successful in getting funding. So I attended the launch at the House of Commons in March. Electrify Industry is also lobbying for the energy sector as a whole to start behaving like a supplier and a utility for industrial customers, rather than well, I won't say what I think it is at the moment, but anyway, making it a little bit easier for our members, I hope, in the future. Good news if that pays off. How can our members help here, though, Matthew? It's a two-way street, isn't it? We want the members to assist us as well.
Absolutely. I mean, people like me, I guess, have been talking about this for a long time and pushing against the government. And the concept seems very strong to us, but it's the evidence that really makes a difference, and examples of actual companies that have suffered in this space. So we need examples from members who've hit barriers with energy network companies, very long connection times, missed orders because you can't connect, missed opportunities to invest in the UK. So if your parent company wanted to invest in the UK, for example, you wanted to invest more in the UK and you haven't because of electricity prices and maybe invested abroad, or you faced unacceptable delays or costs as well on connection, because some of the costs are a bit ridiculous in this space. The government understands there's a problem. They're bored of hearing people like me say there's a problem. They want evidence that companies have actually suffered. So every case study makes a real difference. It really hits home with politicians. There's some really good people in the Electrify Industry. I went along to a policy forum last month as well, and I was really impressed that the chair of that's I think a former minister. She knows all the people to talk to in government to make a difference, but they really do need evidence. So if you've got any case studies, please do get in touch and let us know.
Absolutely, yes. If you've got any experience to share, please get in touch with us. Contact details available via the website. Come and meet us in June at the forum in Wolverhampton. Again, see the screen for details, and you can also help by completing and returning our energy questionnaire that we produced in liaison with LG Energy Group, which gives us an indication of how the cash metal sector is doing. So if you've got 5 minutes, grab yourself a coffee and sit down. It's a very short survey, just gives us an indication about where we are as a whole. So yeah, be really helpful if you can get back to us with some information. The more ammunition you give us, the more we can fight on your behalf. Okay, that's all for today's update. Thank you very much, Matthew. Thanks to you for watching. We'll see you again next time.